So here we are, October 3rd, 2019, and I'm going to be talking about a flourishing life. Now, the inspiration for the title of this class comes from a book called Flourish by Martin Seligman. It's a great book, so I borrow liberally from that book, Flourish. I also borrow from several other books, which I'll tell you about. Okay, so here's what I want you to get out of this class. This is like the main takeaway. Whenever any of us, when we learn about the things that make us happier, the things that bring up our lives, just by learning about it, it actually helps us bring up our lives. You know, when we are a little bit more honed and equipped up here, we can just naturally make a few better choices in our life and also support the people that we love and live with and care about, help them also. So without being a stretch, what I want for you guys coming out of this class, choosing to attend, is you make your lives a little bit better and you make the people that around you a little bit better, okay? Now, we're gonna follow a certain structure. So think of an acronym, and the acronym is PERMA-AM, okay? P-E-R-M-A, PERMA, AM, like in the morning. Now, all those things stand for something. We're going to talk about them all, and you guys can ask questions, and we can, collaborate as we go on this, okay? So this is, like I said, I borrowed a lot from that one book, but also some of my own learnings and own fusions of the things. So this is still me talking to you, okay? So not me just quoting a book, all right? So the first thing of PERMA, the P, okay? Now, again, the way I want you to think about flourishing, this is actually a psychologically defined term, actually, and these components lead to it, okay? So think of flourishing like we think of the weather. I know the weather's a bit on people's mind lately. It's so darn hot. It's 97 degrees in October, right? So the weather, if I were to say to you, hey, we're having nice weather, what would I be talking about? Would I be talking about the temperature? Would I be talking about the humidity? Would I be talking about precipitation? What would we be talking about air quality? You could argue I'd be saying all of it. It's all of it. It's a construct. So weather is a construct of several things all fused together. So flourishing is the same way. So it's not just about being happy right now or not. It's not just about having relationships right now or not. It's a fusion of lots of things. So what the fusion is what we're about to discuss. So the first thing is PERMA, the P, we're going to begin with that. And that's positive emotions, okay? Being happy right then and there. Now, one little takeaway on that is so that's obvious. Obviously, we have a sense of how our life is going. We do want to be happy, but you can have lots of moments in your life where you're not happy, but you still are leading a good life. That's obvious, but sometimes we don't give that its full awareness. I think maybe a lot we don't give that its full awareness. There's that saying nowadays, that's a first world problem. Like that's an example of not being happy. Like, man, I don't get my Wi-Fi on my airplane trip. I'm unhappy about that. Right? Yeah, come on. I am flying 500 miles an hour, 2 miles up, and I'm going to get to some place in an hour or two that would have taken me a week or 3 to get to in old days, And I'm sitting in a comfortable chair. I'm being served a beverage, like a beverage that I will not get cholera from or some other communicable disease from, Like things are pretty darn good, right? So happiness, but so keeping that in mind, it's a component. I might come back to that a little more later. All right, now the next one of our acronym is the E. That's engagement. Okay, that is enjoying what you're doing, or more specifically, time's going by. You're really into it. It might be a task that might not be that pleasant, but it's still a task that commands your full attention. Okay, so an example of this would be, picture 2 tennis players, and one tennis player is really good and one tennis player is not very good. So the one who's really good is going to be bored. The one who's not very good is going to be a bit anxious because the challenges far exceed their skills, or the challenges are far below their skill set, that is not an equation for engagement. What you want is the challenge just matches, or maybe even just slightly exceeds your skill set. So it requires you to be all in, summon up your best, okay? If I'm not an exception. If I'm working on people, and I work on people all day long, some people work on cars, some people work on computer code, some people work on stuff, right? But when I'm working on people and somebody comes and says, man, I got this really severe problem with my knee. I'm 30 days out from choosing to do surgery or considering surgery on my knee, right? And so a moment like that might say, wait, are you willing to give it 30 days? And would you maybe choose to come in let's make a routine thing, come in once a week, every week we're gonna work on it. And at the end of that 30 days, we might decide, hey, are you good enough to wait another 30 days before considering surgery or not, right? It's a challenge that summons up my best attention and engagement, as an example. Now, this is just a hypothetical. This is just a hypothetical example that no one here is who I'm talking about at all, right? Okay, so, engagement, okay? Another little thing that I mentioned about time going by, it's when you are in the flow. That's also a psychologically defined thing, when you're in the flow. And the way that is when time's flying by and you've lost track of it altogether, right? You are extraordinarily present to your task at hand, to the challenge at hand. When a baseball player, when a hitter is hot, he's hitting really well for a game or two or three or more, or a basketball player is nailing every shot for a while. Those people have been interviewed, and what they all collectively describe is, I just see it really well. They just see the ball really well. They can just see the hoop and see the shot really well. So the idea is in seeing it, your senses are fully engaged. You have no two minds on something. There's one mind on one thing. Okay. So I want to break off and tell you a short story about a gentleman who I've been taking care of for some time, and he is really he works at a job that is very, very difficult, very demanding, very important, and very dangerous if he gets it wrong. And like jobs like that, there's a lot of different hierarchy, and he doesn't have full control over some of the things he does. He has control over lots of things, but not everything. But there's bosses who don't necessarily give him his full resources, his full ability. You know that's the common with lots of people deal with, right? So he really is hating his work right now. He's really kind of depressed. He's really, really unhappy. And the first two things I just described, the P and the E. So he might not feel much positive emotions going to work. Okay, but does he have a sense of camaraderie, where he feels kind of happy knowing he's going through this challenge with other people that he likes, right? So there's this positive thing in his relationships, and that's the next thing we're going to talk about, which is the R, relationships. Okay, the relationship is probably, if we really were forced to pick a hierarchy of importance in this, the relationships would probably be the top. Okay, human beings absolutely need each other. There's a couple of stories that it's kind of sciencey, but it's also just sort of a story. This king who lived in this small Italian little tiny kingdom. This was back well after the Romans, kind of in Dark Ages, late Dark Ages, like 1200s, roughly in that era, right? And he's having this debate with some of his learned scholars and his priests of his kingdom. This is a true story, even though I'm kind of embellishing some of the detail here. But they were discussing, what is the native human language? What is the original and basic human language? And they're like, well, it must be Latin. And one guy's like, no, I mean Greek is older. It must be ancient Greek. I think unless we were taught another language, we'd all pop out naturally speaking Greek. No, someone says no. It's going to be the Hebrew or Aramaic, the language of Jesus Christ. It's like, well, the king says, we'll settle this debate. I want you to go out and grab a bunch of young children before they begin to speak, and we will take them away, lock them away, don't talk to them. Let's see if they come out of their cell after some period of time speaking their language, right? You know the story. And so they grabbed up a bunch of children from the local villages, put them in little cells, isolated. And they fed them and they let them go use the potty or whatever, but they just had them isolated, right? To avoid giving them any external influence about language. And after a time, they would check in on these children and guess what they found? Do you think they were speaking Greek or Latin? No, of course not. We know they weren't, but guess what they did find? They found dead children. So we can now appreciate the just awful cruelty of that. These children died of being alone. They had their needs met, but they had no human connection. There was a gentleman who was doing some research around astronauts in space, and he had like an underground apartment, and so he was completely isolated, and he would be there for like months at a time and all that stuff, and he died of a heart attack. And people, the people who were writing this up, I was reading about this in some science magazine or something, and they were quick to say, we don't believe it was because he was isolated. It wasn't because he was alone. And I'm like, I don't agree. Do you know which is more related to brain disease? Depression or loneliness? I've already given you big hints. Which do you think? Absolutely. You can be chronically awfully depressed, and that has a less relationship to developing Alzheimer's and dementia than does being lonely. Okay? So, and one more thing. If you had someone you could call in the middle of the night and say, I'm really worried about this, and you had someone you could talk to, and that person was there for you. If you have that kind of relationship is actually more impactful on your longevity and on your overall health, like your mortality and your morbidity, which is how sick you get or how long you live. It's more impactful than how much you exercise. How much you exercise is less of an effect than just having loving, caring people in your life. Okay? So relationships matter a lot. Okay? I'd also say that it's a common instinct that when we are stressed, when we are hurting, we commonly don't want to burden the people we care about with our own pain, and so sometimes we might isolate ourselves. We are really just stressed, and so we work through our lunch. We don't talk to anybody else. We just keep going. How you doing? I'm fine. And we're not, right? But it's also our cultural thing. Hi, how you doing? Good. Even though you're really in a terrible way, but we can't just say, no, actually, I'm really hurting, but I'll be, it's like we don't say that. We don't burden people, because none of us do. I'm not saying that you should per se, but there is sort of a line where if there is a relationship there, then cross it. If you have a relationship with someone, go ahead and cross it and share, So you invest in your relationships. Invest. When times are tough, lean on more people. Engage in more people. Okay? Foster your relationships with people. Okay? So, my patient who could rely on his friends at work because they were all comrades in arms, going through the same struggle, dealing with the same obstacles. He found that to be meaningful. He's like, oh yeah, it's true. I've worked alongside these guys for like 20 years, and so like we're tight, we're close. And again, the work they do is dangerous if they get it wrong. People are in great danger if they get this stuff wrong. So it's like they're relying on each other to make sure that people on a large scale are safe. You can already appreciate his work is so important and dangerous if he gets it wrong. It's important to be engaged. So they're also well trained. So he goes to work, and although he's not happy, like I said, time does fly by because he's very engaged in his work, right? Now, the next thing is the M of our PERMA. And M means meaning. M is like does your work matter to people? And like for this gentleman who, if he gets it wrong, people can be in great danger, there's a tremendous amount of meaning in that, right? Meaning is the thing that we all want, but to be honest, we all can find it. It takes a certain amount of interpretation, okay? Some meaning is easy to get to, some meaning is not as easy, but meaning can always be there. Just loosely here, like if you're working on somebody's car, a car is someone's transportation and freedom in the world. A car is the thing that we identify ourselves with, as well as gets us to all the things we do in our life, especially here in Atlanta, for God's sakes, because there's no sidewalks and we can't walk anywhere in Atlanta, right? But, so, it's great meaning in giving someone reliability, freedom, consistency, safety. It's beautifully meaningful. If you are someone who helps people buy a new house, like this is their home. I mean, that's so rich in meaning. You are getting someone their home that they're going to live their life in, that they're going to raise children in, that they might retire in, that they're going to build their finances from. It's tremendously meaningful. And those are easy ones, right? But sometimes other bits and pieces of meaning are harder to grasp. If your job is just writing code, if you just are doing software engineering, for instance, and maybe you don't like the company you work for all that much, but there's still I'm spitballing here, right? But there's the people you're working with, the way in which, in a distant way, the products you might create matter to the society at large in a different way, whether it be safety for the society or whether it be transportation for the society or something like that. Like expanding, interpreting how your vision of it is can help engender meaning, right? One example in my own life is I remember many years ago, all of my kids, I didn't have them all then, I have 4 now, but I think I had 3, and the youngest was really little. And I was somewhat lamenting the amount of money I had in my life, right? I know none of you ever have lamented, man, I wish I could have a little bit more money, But for me, I had that feeling, I had that experience, and I was thinking man, it'd be nice if we had 2 incomes, right? However, my wife at the time was at home with the kids, and she was homeschooling the first kindergarten, early grades, right? And so I was thinking about how much money we had, right? But the shift in interpretation, was I realized, okay, so my wife, she's homeschooling our kids. She's homeschooling them in French because her first language was French, and it was meaningful to her to have our children know French. The school zone districts we lived in were not that great, and so she was sparing our children from being in schools that we wouldn't have been comfortable with them being in, right? She made all kinds of fresh-made food at home, and the list really goes on and on, right? I started to look at okay, if I were to actually have to pay for everything that she's doing, we wouldn't be able to afford it even if she was working creating a second income, right? The kind of value she brought into our household was tremendous. And it was right then and there I also realized that the amount of money that we have is because of the choices we are deliberately making, right? We have chosen to live this way, which kind of means a certain income in that moment, right? And we've chosen it because there was certain priority things, meaningful things in our life, right? So right then and there, I got really present to the meaning in our choice of living, and automatically I became, well, I guess I'm not bothered by what we have to do financially, what we have to not do, or how we have to budget this or that, And so the amount of money I had in my life immediately became a non-issue. It was still present. It still became. We had to manage it. Non-issue isn't the right term. It became a non-worry. Became a non-stressor. Okay, it was still present. Still had to be managed. But you with me? So by reinterpreting that meaning, it was a big lift, right? So the last A in PERMA is achievement. So going back to my patient here, he's worked there for over 20 years. And with 20 years of working the same work, you get well compensated. He was well compensated. He was distinguished in his career. He was highly regarded. If there was a challenging thing, they said, hey, get him on that. We need him on that because he's got the skill set. He's got the experience to do it. He'd achieved a lot of things, okay? And he felt it, as I'm describing. So you've achieved lots of stuff, right? He's like, well, yeah, and everything I just said to you, I just said to him. So if there's hard tasks, your higher ups, they do seek you out for it. He's like, absolutely they do, right? So like he became present to that sense of achievement. It's like, boy, I've achieved a lot here. Or let's say you're still kind of new in your career, but like you are progressing very well in your career. Your bosses do look highly to you, and they are happy to have you on a task, right? Like the things we achieve also matter in the experience of flourishing, right? So while this guy was very unhappy, he had a lot of engagement, and he had some good relationships, and he had meaning, and he had an achievement. Like he's checking off a lot of boxes there, and suddenly realizing, boy, there's a lot of good going on here. This is like all right. Like he's already shifting his interpretation in his work, but there's a little more, right? So PERMA AM. So the A of the AM part is autonomy, which also means like if you wanted to take today off, you could. But if tomorrow you want to really hit it, and you wanted to like promote your business to a lot of different people tomorrow, and you wanted to promote yourself to this person, this person, this person, you could choose to do that. You were going to have a business meeting with this person, but you didn't really want to do business with that person, so you canceled the meeting, right? Or whatever, right? You've chosen to work with this person on this project, or you choose to work at this project at this time. No, I'm going to wait for that till after lunch. Autonomy. You get choice in what you do. You have freedom in your selection. You have options. Google got good at this when they gave people 20% time. They said, all right, 80% of your work week, we are assigning your work. You work for us, this is what you do. But 20% of your work week, you work on anything even remotely related to anything Google-ish whatsoever. And you work on it with whoever you want, with whomever you want, whenever you want, whatever. And so these guys got together, and in their 20% time, they invented Gmail. Have you ever heard of Gmail? Yes, everyone and their cousin is on Gmail. And Google said, great work. We're going to give you a percentage of what we collect from our Gmail stuff. So those guys are doing very well, right? A lot of companies have adopted this, and it makes productivity soar. And in my previous practice, I was not the boss, but I was kind of like the manager of everybody, kind of, in my previous practice, right? And so I brought this idea to my bosses saying, hey, why don't we do like what I forget what I called it, but autonomy was my key thing there. So why don't this is what it turned out to be. What we did is we closed one afternoon. We worked the morning, and in the afternoon we closed. We let all the patients know, right? And everybody who worked there was like 3 staff members and 3 chiropractors. There's 6 of us. And so we all got there, and we're gonna do whatever. As long as it's not our normal work, So like for instance, the assistants aren't going to be scheduling and taking payments and taking phone calls, that's their normal work, right? And the chiropractors aren't going to be adjusting, right? But anything else that contributes to the well-being of our business and the function of our business, anything like that, anything that contributes to it, do. And so what I did is I kind of wrote computer programs. We had a computer software that we used to take notes and do scheduling, and I wrote out all kinds of stuff for our computer programming in our office that made all of our work way more efficient. That's what I did. One CA went to our back bathroom and retiled the whole thing. Another CA went back and cleaned out massive swaths of storage closets and where we had stuff just crammed in there, we didn't have any more space, and everything was cleaned out. Now, oh look how nice and easy this all is now, right? So and then other people did other cleaning and this and that. The office had this huge, wonderful facelift. We were all happy and engaged. And when we went back to work on our regular stuff, when patients started showing up the next day and later that week, everyone was we were really busy, basically. Not just because we closed one afternoon, but it brought up energy. It was great, So having a sense of freedom in your choice in any subtle way. I've talked to a lot of people about this, like finding any subtle way of your work being able to, or anything in your life, being able to have a sense of control in your life. Whether you can't control other people, you can still control what you do, right? You can't control the news, but you can control if you watch it or not, and so on. Finding a way to feel powerful and having some autonomous choice in what you're doing, okay? And then the last M of our PERMA AM, M, is mastery. Now, mastery isn't exactly achievement, because achievement is like your trophy case, but mastery is your skill level. Picture a video game, and you're now at 10th level, and 12th level, and 13th level. You're going up levels, right? Your skill set, your sense of mastery of I'm really good at this. I know I'll be able to nail this, right? This challenge you've brought me, excellent. I know I can do this. So you do it, right? So that's engagement, but also like a sense of getting better, getting better, getting better. There was another company called Zappos. It's it's the online shoe store, right? They had this experience where they had somebody go into this program and they learned a bunch of stuff, did a bunch of training, did a bunch of stuff, and 18 months later, they graduated from the program and they had all kinds of more distinguishment, more money, more freedom. It was, everything about it was great, right? But they were having all this great difficulty with people finishing it. And so, what the heck? So what they did is instead of going start, finish 18 months later, instead they said, okay, start. 2 months later, you've achieved this. 2 months later, you've achieved this. 6 weeks later, you achieved this. Another week later, you achieved this. Another 2 months later, you achieved this. They just chunked it up, right? And then their graduation rate in this thing skyrocketed. So people could see one little tidbit after another, they could see their improvement. They were measurably witnessing, they could witness their own mastery, each stepping stone of getting better. So just doing the same thing, but just smaller chunks, right? So in our own lives, finding little bits and pieces of improvements. There's certain things, if you're deliberately challenging yourself, let's say you're learning piano and you're learning this technical thing, right? This one particular amount of notes. Now you can tell I'm not a musician, right? So you're playing and it's it's choppy, and then you keep going, right? And then you keep on working on it, and it's choppy, but a little quicker, and then it's all of a sudden a little less choppy, a little quicker, and then hey, you went right past it. Well, and eventually you went right past that little challenging part. Oh, I remember when that used to always stick me, right? And so there's this, hey, my work is paying off. I've just shown increased mastery over that challenge. So giving yourself, and then what comes to this is giving yourself challenges. Where I see this on the dark side, honestly, is when people retire. I have seen people degrade quickly when they've retired and are no longer taking on challenges. They're no longer demonstrating what they were masterful in, and they're no longer like finding a new challenge worthy of them. And so I witnessed it a couple times, and after that, I've been in my own career, my own practice long enough where I've been around people who are now phasing into retirement, and that's like the first thing I say to them. You must find a challenge worthy of you. Take that on. Do not stop. Don't get too idle. For the most part, a lot of times people don't. Usually family says, "Oh, great, you can take care of the kids now." And so now people are very busy anyway with purpose. But so anyway, so my friend here, my patient here, he saw how there was moments where he was happy. There's lots of moments where he was very engaged. There's moments where he could lean on his relationships he made at work, right? He had meaning. In essence, another word for meaning is purpose, which I just used a moment ago. Like there's his work matters for a lot of people. There's purpose in it for him, right? And sometimes, or another way of looking at it is like it's more. You're doing this more than just for yourself. You're doing this for a bigger thing, right? Then there's levels of achievement, and then there's your freedom and your choice, and like I can do what I'm doing, and your autonomy, and then there's your meaning in it. So there's your perma AM, and that was his perma AM, and he kind of left that conversation feeling a hell of a lot better than when it came into that conversation, and in part that's what I wanted to give you guys in this conversation here. Now, is any of this part perma AM? Any of these pieces? Is there anything about this you guys want to ask about? Anything you want to talk about?
Do you feel like the positive emotions part is an effect of something else, or is it like your mindset going in?
What do you think?
Both.
There you go.
Right.
It's both. You guys got to be both, right?
Of course.
According to like psychological research, how we are, like in essence, kind of like, I want to make sure I get this right for you. It's like how happy we are, basically. There is 50% of that is thought to come from your genes. Okay, it's just your genetic set point. Then, what was it? 10% of it comes from your circumstances. So, how much money you have, how many good people are around you, what kind of neighborhood you live in, what kind of work you're doing. 10%, that's circumstances. Okay, so that's what we spend a lot of time thinking about our circumstances when we're talking about being happy or not. And that's really, really only 10% of the equation of how happy we are, right? So what that leaves off is 40%, and that's the 40% that's readily controllable by our perspective, by our choice of what we're choosing to focus on, by what we choose to speak about, and that's entirely about choices, okay? So, ironically, this has also been studied that if you are very disciplined in those choices, and like doing other things, like even such as it's been shown in like meditation. If you meditate for like 10 minutes a day, every day. I don't meditate 10 minutes a day every day, and I know this stuff. So I'm not saying, I'm not preaching what I'm doing. So this is hypocritical of me, but like they've actually been able to spot genetic changes. There are different expressions of our DNA just by making these certain kinds of choices consistently, right? So even though genes are set at 50% of the influence, genes themselves are very slowly changeable, very slowly. Not all our genes, of course, but like some tweaks and modifications, right? So genes aren't fake, right? Yeah.
So the key to living a flourishing life is to have perma AM.
So these are the pieces, these are the studied pieces that contribute to it. And you could say that, yes, these are the keys to it. But what I'm getting at too is like, sometimes if we are down about certain things, knowing that there's lots of components to living this kind of life, becoming aware of the other components that you do have make it better, like make you feel better in your own heart and soul, you know? Going through really heavy challenges where you're really unhappy about stuff, like the story doesn't need to end there. You can still look at, like an example is, well, you know, we all have stress in our life, you know, like we all have varying degrees of intensity and varying amounts throughout our life, right? And so, but stress is this thing that we all deal with. But interesting thing about stress is that stress is completely intertwined with meaning. If we didn't care at all, it wouldn't stress us. Only the things that matter to us, that hold meaning to us, is the things that could possibly be stressful. Like, I couldn't care less about my neighbor's carpet color. But the owner hates the carpet color. Hates it. So it's very meaningful to that person, right? I have not an iota of stress about my neighbor's carpet color. Because I'm trying not to cuss. I don't care, I don't give a, you know, I don't care at all, right? Because this is being recorded, can't cuss, right? So like, but there's things that I do care very much about that are very stressful to me, right? So in a perverse way, I would say, if you have a lot of stress that you feel greatly burdened by, that is painful for you, I would also say to you, congratulations, because that also means your life is robust and rich with meaning. You know, and it's also a meaningless life is not the life we want. Okay, we all think we don't want stress, but stress comes with meaning. It really does. And so you don't want a meaningless life. Okay. Now, of course, meaningful things don't always need to be stressful. They don't always need to be stressful. They don't. But you know that if you do have stress, then the prerequisite to that stress is there's meaning. Okay. So like think of it like an umbrella. The higher umbrella is meaning, and stress is underneath it. And so if you are being rained on by that cloud of stress, know that there is also meaning. Okay, with me on that? See it? What else?
What about the stress if you're like trying to make a customer happy, but you're like, I really don't care about this thing, you know, there's certain, I guess, like people-pleasing stress you can have where it's sort of, you've assigned it some sort of importance, but it's not actually important.
People-pleasing. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, I spend a lot of time, here, how about this? I'll tell you this much. We all, inherently as human beings, appreciate being validated, okay? I would say fundamentally that. Just being a human with them, like I talk to young chiropractors and chiropractic students a lot, and I talk to them about the skill sets you need to have as a chiropractor. Okay, so there's gonna be some crossover here for you. So I talk to people about, like, what do you think like the most important skill is in terms of, like, you know, being a chiropractor, in terms of actually having a successful business as a chiropractor. What do you think the most important skill is, right? And people are like, you know, adjusting. You got to make sure you do a good adjustment. And yes, this is very important, right? But like, that's not the most important skill. What about like talking and explaining? You know, because if you explain it right, people will understand what you're doing better. This is also very important, but that's not the most important skill. The most important skill, the first prerequisite, the top of the hierarchy in skill in having a successful business as a chiropractor is listening to people. You must hear people. That person must feel validated. I am really with you. What's going on with you? Okay, all right. So because the reality is that if someone's suffering really badly, I'm going to do my best for them, and then I will go home, and I'm not going to carry their suffering with me, right? And so you could argue, maybe I don't, and this is kind of hard to say a bunch of people I take care of in my practice here, but like I don't carry that burden with me. You know what I mean? So like I almost hate to say it, but like maybe I don't care completely, but it's like, you with me? Like, but I do care. I care very much about this person doing better, right? And it's also important that this person feels heard. You know, like on a personal example, you know, back when I was a teenager, when you know everything as a teenager, right? Like your parents might say something to you, you're like, they don't know what they're talking about, right? And then when I was just about to graduate as a chiropractor and I was becoming a brand new father, all like within the same summer, actually within the same 30-day period, I became 2-month period, I became a father and a chiropractor. I suddenly thought, oh God, my dad is a chiropractor, he's a father. He gets me, right? Okay, see, like he never didn't get me, but I realized at that moment that the challenges that I have, he's had and done well with them, right? So whatever dad says is suddenly so much more meaningful to me, like because my interpretation of what he might say was different. Like I suddenly felt understood by him. And so anything he'd have to say was vastly more important because I felt understood by him, right? That was a big one for me, right? So just simply you just showing understanding, just really hearing and hearing, giving them a validity, that's as far as it probably needs to go. You're not pleasing anybody. You're just being a good human being. Yeah, okay. Boy, yeah, that sucks.
I think we deal with all that in any job, it seems.
To varying degrees, absolutely.
Well, in my job, that's
if you're dealing with people,
yeah.
if you're dealing with people,
it's paramount.
Absolutely.
If you don't listen to them, if you don't ask questions, you don't know what to do next.
That's right.
So anyway,
again, going back to like the doctor skill set, right? Mm-hmm. If a doctor is great at what they're doing, if a chiropractor is a great adjuster, yet a patient really doesn't like them, like that's usually the first question. Spouse goes in and gets worked on, and spouse goes, and one of the very first questions that the other spouse who wouldn't go, well, did you like the doctor? Did you like the doctor? Mm. That's often a first question. You know, I've heard people, yeah, I liked you and I thought you did good or whatever, and so it's like, the liking of me apparently matters, you know. So anyway, when you're dealing with people, they gotta like you, you know. There's some business advice for you, right? But I would say this too. I had a guy come in and he owned a CrossFit gym, so he's like the intense, like kick-ass kind of guy, right? And he owned the gym, and I had broken my rib the day before. I was in pain, and I was working, right? It's not easy to adjust people with a broken rib. So he sits down, it's his very first visit, we're talking, and I heard what he had to say, validating, whatever, right? And then he asked me some kind of question about, getting started. He's like, I don't know if I want to get started or whatever. And I had a crowd of people waiting for me, and I was in pain, so I was being impatient. I wasn't completely myself, but I said something like, you can take it or leave it. I'm busy enough anyway. So if you want what I got to offer, come on. If not, whatever. And so that was that. Like I basically gave him a push off, right? And as I said to him, like, take what I got or not, or whatever, I kind of pushed him off. I saw him. He goes like that, and the guy became a fantastic patient. Referred everybody he knew, and I didn't try to please him one bit, but I still hurt him. And for some reason that matched. Now I wouldn't say blow everybody off. That's not the best business building strategy, but it worked in that moment. Anyway, so any other thoughts or questions, comments, contributions? Or questions?
Yeah, I mean, I related to all of those because I'm in a little different place in life. Like I've been in business for almost 40 years, so I kind of see that, I came from a very critical family. I kind of see that over time, I kind of realized I had to surround myself with more joyful people and different things. I just every stage of that you talked about, I could kind of relate how that went when I went through all that. And I'm kind of at a pretty joyful place in my life, and I thank you. And I right now I'm doing phone calls. I hate making phone calls. I don't really like doing this, but I have a part-time job doing this, but it's with old people. And actually, one of my first jobs was with old people, And oddly enough, old people love to talk to you on the phone. They actually answer it and they don't get mad at you on the other end. And so it's kind of like, well, actually, this is kind of fun.
This isn't so bad.
This is
You're connecting with lots and lots of people. You know?
Yeah, and you know, they sit there and they chit chat, and I actually get some information where I'm actually going to get some business from these people.
That's awesome.
Maybe one or two of them out of my big, huge list. But, you know, it's kind of fun. And, I mean, this is not what I did my entire life. I dealt with some pretty high-end people. I'm at that retirement age, by the way. So I'm like kind of semi-retired. I moved down here. I have no client list anymore. I have nothing. And it's kind of fun to say, okay, what am I going to do now?
There you go.
And this is okay. This is okay. Okay, so they're not the CFO of Saks Fifth Avenue, who I sold a house to. They're this little old lady who eventually is going to want to get out of this house that requires all this work. It's okay. It's kind of fun. You know, she's happy to talk to me. I'm happy to talk to her, to listen to her. I'm just in a different place. And I kind of see all that stuff in the rearview mirror that you're talking about, a lot of it. But
It's not only in the rearview mirror, though.
but it isn't. No,
But
it
you can
isn't.
identify with it.
Some of it I can, yeah, I listen to it and I can identify with every step, and it's not in the rearview mirror. I want to surround myself with enjoyable people. Even if I do retire, I want to do something. And, you know, and I'm thinking about what's the next purposeful thing I can do.
I
So
want
it's
to say
kind of
one
cool.
more thing about
Yeah.
being happy. Like you're kind of talking
Yeah.
about like enjoying some of those conversations. There's just one more little takeaway about just the happiness part.
Yeah,
You know, being happy for any reason at all automatically makes all your work more productive and better, by the way. Someone who's happy automatically does better.
do you know, another thing I have noticed is that I don't curse because it's a negative kind of way to talk, you know, and I realized I used to talk more negatively than I do now. Actually, it's something I kind of learned from your mom. Don't say that. That's that's sort of a really, you know, it puts out bad vibes. And I, you know, I listen to how much. It's not like cursing was ever a big part of my life, but I'm hearing more and more of it, and I think it has a negative kind of angry sound to it. So I don't know why that came to my mind, but I'm trying to be more positive in the way I speak.
I think it's a worthy effort.
Yeah. So anyway.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
So the meaning and achievement part, again, this is probably from other people's perspective, but say Van Gogh never sold a painting when he was alive, but we know that he was doing something with meaning and achievement, but it's like based on whose metrics,
Yeah.
right? So it seems like those two, it should be up to you, right? But there's other lenses too, right?
Yeah.
You have that degree, diploma, whatever. That's interesting, I think, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quantify, but yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I think we'll wrap up our class. Okay. So that's it for now.
It's good
I'm glad you guys came.
stuff to think about.
Can you get the Bible?